Welcome to this week's What's the Score for Southampton away as Everton go down the South Coast for the 2 o'clock kickoff on Sunday afternoon. I'm joined as ever by Matt Jones, and guest of honour this week is the only fella to get the score right last week in our group chat. It's Mark Mosey. You predicted 2-2.
Yeah, as if the enjoyment of the disallowed goal wasn't already peak fun, then realising that I'd picked 2-2 was a nice icing on the cake, definitely. Yeah. But following in Kev Campbell's footsteps is a bit of a big one, really. I also have scored at Anfield, but we didn't quite manage the win that day. And also it was a dream. So it's quite similar.
So we can't say fairer than that.
I was thinking that, I can't remember him saying about playing in a charity game or when he was a kid at Anfield or anything like that.
Dude, that was me talking about a dream of playing at Anfield and scoring, and the result was still a draw, because in my head, that is brilliant.
That's about as good as it gets. I don't really want to bang on too much about what happened last week, but I read this morning, Hasenhüttl said Jordan Pickford should be playing tomorrow. He called the tackle disastrous, horrible, and said some duels happen that don't have to happen, which I don't really know what he means by that. But does this just seem like a concerted effort against one of our players now? How are you sort of taking it that everyone's chipping in on this? Mark,
he's like Klopp reincarnate, that guy, and he's there always seems to be this sort of hierarchy. The guy who was at Huddersfield, he'll correct me on his name.
Wagner.
Oh, Wagner.
He was. They're all forming a queue to be Jurgen Klopp's lapdog, and Hasenhüttl has obviously taken the reins this week. But it's been quite ironic. Obviously, we're not going to touch on it too much, but the similarities of other challenges and other situations that we've seen in 6 days since that game. It's been a bit of a social exercise to see how different situations are treated differently depending on the personnel involved and depending on who it offends the most. The Gary Cahill, Lewis Dunk tackle that happened last weekend, which, I mean, you can definitely with a hand on heart say that Jordan Pickford didn't mean to cause any hurt. Lewis Dunk looks as though that's his only motivation. For it to be described on TV by a commentator as Lewis Dunk trying to spread his body to block a clearance, I just thought Gary Cahill is probably not going to play football for a few weeks because of a horrendous tackle. But we all know, we've all been invested in this long enough to know that if you offend Big Red, then you offend everyone. And I'm more than willing to let this play out for just personal humour for the next few months.
Yeah, I think that's where I am at with it, mate. It's just funny now, isn't it? It's just, how many days are you going to wake up for and just have people quote tweeting articles saying like day 150 or day 3. It's like the Calvert-Lewin penalty all over again, isn't
it? That's been like 1,000 odd days now, hasn't it?
Yeah, it brought up again recently, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been ridiculous, hasn't it? I think we said it in the week, mate, didn't we, on Blue Monday, that we sort of thought this week now, after like the reaction, the initial reaction to it subsided, you get the reaction to the reaction, and then the reaction to the reaction. And that latter one tends to be, right, you can be the most outraged by this. I don't like really bad tackles, so I'm going to say that Jordan Pickford should be put in prison. Or I don't like really bad tackles, so I should say that Jordan Pickford should not play a football match until Virgil van Dijk plays another football match. That's how much I don't like bad tackles against Liverpool. It's ridiculous, and it's. I suppose Hasenhüttl's point of view, he obviously would have been asked about it.
Yeah.
Or, to go in that strongly, and we seen it yesterday, didn't we, as well in the Everton press conference. I just couldn't believe her.
That was utterly bizarre from a national journalist.
To just talk about, and I think, while Reds and Blues disagree on a lot of things, there's absolutely no doubt in the class of a fellow like Carlo Ancelotti at all. And to suggest that he was trying to point score over someone with a serious knee injury in a press conference by saying that Rodriguez, his condition had got better effectively. having earlier in the week, Jurgen Klopp literally said Alisson's got well better actually, to the point where we thought he was going to play at the weekend. To say that and go, it feels like you're point scoring a bit there, Carlo. I've been being asked, how did Rodriguez get injured? Well, he got injured in a tackle with Van Dijk. You can't say that lad. Point scoring. Point scoring. You can't mention his name unless you're one of us.
Yeah.
No, it's just been hysterical, hasn't it? And I think it was interesting. I saw, I think it was Dave. I don't remember on Twitter or in our group chat this morning saying that part of the media briefing tends to be a bit more conversational, because obviously that wasn't supposed to go out, was it, on the club's channel? Like, they usually cut the feed off. But it was just really disappointing. And I think, I imagine Paul Joyce is gutted and fuming in equal respect of that's nice to get out there. But he gave the impression of a fella that was just sit there. As soon as Carlin mentioned Virgil van Dijk, he just steam coming out of his ears and shuffling uncomfortably and getting increasingly angry. So I just hope, I sort of was hopeful on Wednesday that with them playing a game and actually beating a really good side, that the conversation will turn into something else now. But, here we are.
I didn't think that's what he'd sound like either. I wasn't expecting that voice at all.
What, Joyce?
Yeah.
Like, isn't it? The first time I heard him speak, it's like, wow, mate. Yeah. You do not sound like what I thought you sounded like.
It was fantastic what Carlo was doing, though. I mean, for a guy who you get the feeling it's still gradually getting to grasp with the sort of nuances of the English language, to be able to embed that level of secret fume into his conversation was just fantastic, and to do it in a way that he could quite quickly back off and say, "Well, I'm just stating the obvious. I wasn't trying to imply anything." And it just we all know the beautiful hatred that you're putting into that line.
I don't know if he did. I just sort of feel like he's just. Because I think what was interesting about the thing on Thursday, that was from the club, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I was what I said on Monday. So he had the report saying that Rodriguez was going to be out for the week. I don't know if that interview was recorded a few days before it or something, because you'd imagine if it's in-house, they can do these sorts of things. I don't know if it's been confirmed anywhere, but I don't know. He just strikes me as someone that wouldn't bother himself with that, mind games like that. He's been there, done it so often. He's so focused, so composed. He's one of those people. If he was coming on podcast to talk about all this, he'd be going, do you know what, lads? I can't be arsed. I'm fed up with all this nonsense. I just want to speak about football. I sort of get the impression he's that type of fella.
Yeah. And of course, Rodriguez could be out for the week and still play against Southampton. There is that.
Yeah. We should get Carlo on and see if he is genuine.
We'll have to get him to do a score prediction first.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you got to get it right. You can't just walk on the show, Carlo.
We've got to earn it.
What do you think his nickname for us would be? Like Jack Carlisle's the king of them, isn't he? Comes out with little monikers for our team every week. What do you think he'd call us?
What, call us? Oh, I get you. In terms of the team. Oh.
I mean, we've got some great ones this week, which I'm probably not sure we can read out, to be honest. But
the Pretenders.
I'm going to read Jack Carlisle's score prediction on verbatim, don't worry. St Mary's then. So it's not been a great place for us to go, has it? I was looking at the stats before. We've won 3 in 12, lost 6, drawn 3, but we did win our last trip down there, which was absolutely mental because we were awful. It's
I've forgotten about the game completely.
What's that?
I've totally forgotten about that. Until I spoke to Ben for the weekend this week, I was thinking we haven't been down there for ages. And I was like, oh, actually, we won
massive.
It was a forgettable football match. It's just gone from me head.
Yeah. Even having gone to the game a few years ago where we won 3-0, and I think it's one of those iconic away performances. The image of Southampton away for me is Seamus Coleman on one knee after that own goal has gone in, where he's tried to head it back to a tune with Tim Howard. And in my mind at St Mary's, Everton players haven't moved since that moment. And we all take up those positions, and Seamus Coleman just takes the knee just to remember how horrible a moment that was. But it does feel like one of those grounds where kind of games don't stick in the memory. The Lukaku and Barkley scoring 3-0 one is obviously a kind of defining moment of the start of what we hope was going to be an era there. But It's not a ground that I don't think we take a great deal of optimism there, regardless of how we've been playing in the last few weeks, and obviously for a few different reasons leading up to this game, we've probably got a little bit more hesitation than results should dictate that we have going into it. Would you say?
Yeah, I think you said in the week, didn't you, Matt? Possibly like underdogs going into this now. When James was said to be out, was out. We were going into this one as slight underdogs because it's a tough place to go away. You've had a patchy season. They won 2, drawn 2. 1-2, lost 2, and then pulled that draw out against Chelsea last week. So they are a team who can battle back from behind, and they're generally, like a cliche, isn't it? But Hasenhüttl generally, apart from Leicester, has them well organised. That game where they got webbed 9-0, he pretty much, it's going to be a tough game. That is a really bad cliche. I'm so sorry for saying that.
Do you know what, mate?
It's a call, isn't it? It's a hard one to call.
I reckon it's going to be a game of 2 halves.
I'll be sick as a parrot if we get beat.
I mean, where did that one come from? Sick as a parrot.
Cockneys. It's got to be from Cockneys, that.
But do you know, like, I feel like whenever we do previews, we talk about teams that might one of the timeless, again, another cliche people always say about their team is we're probably better when teams come out and have a go against us, and instead of just sitting in, that gets said all the time. But I feel like at the moment we're probably better against teams that just are happy to sit in.
Yeah.
Rodriguez, you can just say, right, you're going to give me space on the ball, I can thread the eye of the needle. And I sort of feel like Liverpool did it against us last weekend and unsettled us a little bit, didn't they? Palace did. They were dead tenacious in midfield and trying to get about us. I sort of feel like those sides that are willing to press and take a risk in how they operate off the ball, are probably going to get more joy against us at the moment than someone's just going to sit back and try and break us down. And that's what Southampton do. They will get amongst you. They've got 2 lads up front who work the ball off and chasing everything into the channel. Fullbacks get up and down. They've got I never they've got amazing midfielders, but they've got look like Romeu and Armstrong and Ward-Prowse and Redmond. You just think they're just not going to give you an easy game. They're just going to be around you and ratting around you and kicking and pressing and all that sort of thing. And I think it'll be a good challenge for midfield to see how they hold up against that, because they looked, as much as they had a really good start to the season, against the pressure Liverpool brought at last weekend, and obviously this isn't the same because it's Southampton, it's not Thiago Henderson and Fabinho. Against them, they looked a little bit flimsy, but overall they've been pretty good, haven't they, those 3? But it's whether Gomez plays as well, of course, because obviously there's a lot of talk about Sigurdsson potentially coming in for them too.
Yeah, I was going to try and fit a few more cliches in there, but you've actually made some serious points, so I feel like it's gone too far. But it's 6-1 off the now. I'm joking, not going there. But I think midfield is it's essentially where everyone
games are lost.
Yeah. Well, it absolutely is for Everton, because that is on paper where our strengths lie. But oh God, no. But it strikes you as one of those games where we could come out the other end of it. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but it's true anyway. Because we could come out of it with more questions than answers if it goes badly. Because the big question mark, if James was to miss out, is where does your creativity come from? And I think not to call it a problem, because we've got some great players there now, but the hindrance with Everton's central midfield at the moment is that when you get to games like this where you haven't got people like Richarlison and James doing all of the attacking work, you look at those 3 in the middle and think, well, who's going to be the one who pushes? Who's going to be the goal threat? And you instinctively, you obviously look at Decore first and probably Gomez second as being the ones who you ask to do a little bit more and break the lines into the final third. But from what we've seen this season, neither of those are going to be a really consistent goal threat, and that's because they haven't had to be. That is not their role in this team at the moment. And when everyone is fit, you're never going to get one of them consistently breaking into the 18-yard box, because it's simply not required. And obviously, there's been question marks about, in particular, Andre Gomez in recent weeks, and obviously going back into last season as well, as him just hitting that form before his injury, really. I think we all know the type of player he is. We're not trying to find anything out massively about him. We just want him to be back at his best. But this is probably one of the games where if James was to miss out, you do look at someone like Gylfi Sigurdsson, who's been relatively resurgent in recent weeks, and you think, well, if we're going to need someone who's capable of picking a killer pass or finding Calvert-Lewin in a way that you'd ordinarily rely on James to do, then Sigurdsson very quickly becomes integral to the game, because he's doing everything that you would expect someone like James to do. I mean, if we were going to go like for like and trying to replace those two wide men from a personnel point of view, you probably look at Iwobi taking one of those spots because of the sort of backup attacking players. He is the one who Carlo sees as favourable, you'd say. And you'd probably bring someone like Bernard in, both capable, but you're not going to get the same level of final ball quality. That's probably the big question mark about those two players in particular, is can you find Calvert-Lewin with a defining pass? And I think when you take Richarlison and James out, Sigurdsson probably is next in line, you'd say, in terms of being that sort of assist threat.
Yeah, I think that the other thing about James, which I think is interesting there, is that if you take him out, not only have we not got anyone in the squad who can replace his creative output, the entire balance of that attack sort of goes, because apart from him, I don't think there's anybody in our squad that you would say, if you ask them what positions you want to play on the pitch, I don't think anybody else would say right-hand side.
Yeah.
They get Iwobi, Gordon, Bernard, Richarlison, all probably want to play on the left. Sigurdsson probably wants to play 10 or, as part of a midfield three. Same with Gomez. And obviously Don plays at the points of the attack. And all of a sudden you've got a situation there where if he doesn't play, you're asking a lad to go into a position and, which he doesn't really suit him and do a job. I mean, maybe Gordon's the most natural in there, but again, I think he's probably better coming off that left-hand side and driving in. So I think that's the other thing. If he doesn't play, it upsets the balance of the attack a little bit. But I sort of get the feeling that this game tomorrow is going to be one of them where you're looking at somebody who hasn't stuck their hand up yet this season in terms of goals to do. You mentioned Decore there. He typically chips in with 6-7 goals a season, doesn't he? Something like that. And obviously at the weekend he was very much defensively minded against Liverpool's midfield and against Robertson pushing on that right hand side. But you'd like to think that against Southampton, against the 4-man Southampton midfield where we've got 3 in there or 5, however you want to look at it, you'll have the opportunity to get forward a little bit more. Sigurdsson is mentioned there, absolutely. I think it's going to be one of them games where maybe one of the people on the fringes this season haven't been given as much praise as some of the other mainstays, that they've got to stick their hand up and make an impression.
We just need to get in the mix-up to the big man. It's worked this season so far, so...
You've been holding on to that through 2 monologues. Just waiting.
Yeah, bite me tongue there. Don't chip in.
Anything can happen.
So what we saying then? Because obviously Richarlison's definitely missing.
Yeah.
I'd see Gordon there, not just because it's like, play one of the kids, because we just can't shake that ever, because that's never massively.
Yeah.
And he just seems the most like-for-like replacement for me. He's direct and is running at defence. It's more like Richarlison than you're going to get from Bernard, basically. But I'd like to see him, but given the fact that he's not been on the bench the last couple of weeks, I would be surprised. Who would you go with?
Well, in an ideal world, Gordon, but I think you've hit the nail on the head in terms of being ready for this game. I would personally put Bernard slightly ahead of him. And I think in a real world, I think Alex Iwobi probably plays just for the preference that Carlo's had, which we mentioned before. But I think with someone like Bernard, you probably get the most likely form of creativity there. I think someone like Gordon, he's clearly capable, but in terms of doing it time and time again, I think he's still a little bit raw to rely on in what is ultimately a big game for us. And someone like Bernard probably offers you just a little bit more assurance on the wing. The criticism that's been aimed at Bernard, I'd say, in the time that he's been at Everton, is that he will show up in home games against weaker opposition, and he'll be magic on that left-hand side, and it will all click and everyone will feel nice, and it'll probably be sunny at Goodison and it'll work. But when we go away from home, has he got that resilience? Has he got that physicality to be part of what a Premier League away performance just has to look like? And I think that the difference now this season is that if you talk about that physicality and that structure that every player has to offer in an away performance, he probably has been offered a little bit more freedom now, because in times gone by, what was sat behind him was Tom Davis, Andre Gomez and Gylfi Sigurdsson, and there was no organisation, there was no structure, and we needed wingers to chip in that regard. What he's got now is a pretty solid core, you'd say, which accentuates mainly from that midfield. And people like Bernard and Richarlison, we're asking them to do a little bit less going back towards their own goal. It's the reason why James Rodriguez works, because we've got people like Decore and Alan who will do the horrible stuff and say, you go and be the footballer. And you, on paper, you'd say that really works for Bernard, because all we're asking him to do is, here's the ball 30 or 40 yards out from goal. Go and be magic. Just do the things that are a luxury. And that's exactly where Bernard fits into any football team. So I would like to see him, as much as we don't really know what happened at the back end of the transfer window and where he kind of sits in the hierarchy now. I'd like to see him introduced slowly back into, obviously not a starting 11 when everyone's available, but I'd like to see him as first reserve, because I think he is someone who gets you on the edge of your seat, and that is essentially what a winger is there for.
Yeah, that's a really good point. He's sort of like, I suppose, the way the team's set up with James and Richarlison, and we've got James going down the right hand side, but can sort of drift left if he wants to, or just like he did in the start walking around the pitch wherever he wants. Just do it, you're dead good. And we've got Richarlison more direct down the right. I suppose for this game, we could flip that, have a Wobie direct down the right side, and then Bernard say, look, if you want to drift in, because when he gets centrally, he's been good this season and at times last season as well. Yeah. He's got that luxury, as you say, to drift in and just make things happen. So yeah, that's it. Good shout. What do you reckon, Matt?
Yeah, I think that the one little worry I've got for the game tomorrow is we don't really know how we've got that penetration or penetration threat in behind. Because I think if you think about some of the goals we scored this season, and the one against West Brom where James drops it over the top to Richarlison, who's making the run in behind, who squares it to Calvert-Lewin. Away it's Palace, Coleman getting in behind there and pulling it back. I think Coleman and Richarlison give you that threat in behind. They're not going to come short for the ball. They're going to keep running in behind. And against a side like Southampton, who play quite a high line and try and keep the game quite compact in the middle third, that ball on over the top is on against them all the time. And I think Richarlison would have been a great player in this game with that in mind. And to be honest, with that in mind, I'd probably say, if you're looking at stylistics, probably Gordon's the one most comparable to Richarlison, albeit he's not at his level yet, of course. But that's why I'd be tempted to play him, because I think he's not someone who's just going to, if Decore or Alan or Gomez are on the ball, he's not going to make the run forward towards them and go give me a 5-yard pass. He's potentially going to drop in and spin and go in behind. And I think we'll need that, because Coleman's not going to be there to provide that on the right. Richarlison's not going to be there to provide that on the left. And there's going to be a big onus on Luca Dean to do it in getting forward. And maybe it's not his game as much as those two. So yeah, that's an interesting one. I probably, if we're going to go Iwobi Bernard that wide, I'd probably agree with you there. As I'd probably say Iwobi on the right, just there's probably a bit more of a better fit. Bernard on the left, but I would like to see Gordon given a chance, just because I feel like you need that variety of threat. And if we play Bernard and Iwobi or James on one side, and it feels like everything's just going to congest a little bit too much in the middle of the pitch.
Yeah. I think so. We're going to be looking towards Dominic Calvert-Lewin to score again, because I think that goal in the derby really sort of cemented the fact that he is actually a really good centre forward now, because he can score against anyone. He's consistently doing this season. Stats on this one: he can become only the second player ever after Sergio Aguero last season to score in each of his sides opening 6 Premier League matches, which is some going, isn't it?
So, ever, that's incredible.
Ever, yeah. So I mean, if he can net tomorrow, that is some stat that. And slightly more, less grandiose stat. Everton can achieve consecutive Premier League wins at Southampton for the first time. So that sort of shows how been down there, especially when you consider like they've been relegated a couple of times.
Yeah, it's a proper coin toss game for Everton, isn't it? Just knowing what sort of side shows up. I think the troubles that we're having from a personnel point of view going into this is just a summary of what Southampton away is for Everton, because you just never quite know what's going to happen there. But yeah, I think this all very quickly changes if we go into the game. We're full strength. We've got Gordon on one side and James on the other. And I think that's why it's an incredibly difficult game to predict, because up until we get the lineup tomorrow, we're not really going to know what result is a good result for Everton. I think most Evertonians, based on the start that we've had, and it's not to hold back from the quality that we've got, but most people wouldn't be too disappointed with a draw at this stage, because we know how difficult winning 6 or 7 games at the start of the season has been. And there's an acceptance there that at times, even though the quality of the opposition is not quite as high as what Liverpool presented us, the challenge is arguably greater. So I think it's a real test. It feels like if Everton were to go on and achieve something of note this season, this is potentially one of the games that we'll look back on in the season review and think that was a defining point, going down to Southampton when the tables were against us and there was a real challenge in front of us. And we went and nicked it 1-0, or we got a point when we were terrible, and we kept that run going and kept that sort of resilience about the squad. So it could be a really important game for us, I think.
Just a couple of things, Les. Man City just drew with West Ham, by the way, 1-1.
Yeah.
So that means that if Everton beats City tomorrow, they can go 8 points clear of them in the table. If Everton beats Southampton tomorrow, they go 8 points clear of them. Obviously, we've only played 6 games. We just had a comment there as well from Steve Speak saying, just watch Man City and they are crying out for a DCL. If he keeps up this form, I can see him going at the end of the season. Oh, come on, Steve.
He's not going to leave the reigning Premier League champions at the end of the season, is he?
Nah.
I've mentally sold Richarlison because we've just said Anthony Gordon is better than him. So, I mean, it's unfortunately the worry, isn't it? As soon as one of your players starts performing, you just
I don't reckon Pep would let him swan off to New York Fashion Week like we do.
No.
Have a think about that, Dom, if City coming for you, mate.
Yeah. Haven't Man City got this deal with D-Squared or something where they all wear the same really bad clothes for away days?
Yeah, he can knock that. Absolutely.
That's a clincher.
That caper. Yeah, so just on that though, obviously, like the better you do, the more you sort of panic that you're going to lose your best players, because it happens to us all the time, doesn't it? But do you not feel a little bit different now with Ancelotti, that he can like be the fact that we've got Ancelotti and James Rodriguez in the team? You'd have to just look at anyone who wants to leave and go, really?
Yeah. Are you prepared for the exodus when Ancelotti goes in a few years and everyone just thinks, oh God, I didn't realise this was Everton, and then everyone's gone and we're back to bringing lads out the under-18s to sit on the bench.
Hey, that's Talbot.
I suppose the other thing as well is who could afford them at the moment. Like how much would you sell them for now? You're looking at huge money now, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you pitch transfer fees at how much does it cost to replace this player? I mean, admittedly, Ancelotti gives us a bit of pulling power in the market, but you realistically, if you're going to go out and sign someone who is expected, which is what Calvert-Lewin is now, is expected to score 20 Premier League goals a season, you're spending like 70 or 80 million to go and bring someone in. It's crazy.
What did Rom go for? 90, was it?
Yeah.
90, I think,
Yeah.
That was 3 years ago.
I mean,
I think with inflation and stuff, I think you'd be looking at that again.
Yeah, it's mad as well.
Yeah.
You only need half a season as an elite Premier League player, which is what he is now, to put yourself into those echelons of ridiculous money.
Like Andy Carroll all those years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's all you need.
That's one that never gets talked about enough, is it?
Yeah, because he scored against us at Wembley. It'll be much funnier if he didn't score the winner against us at Wembley, wouldn't it?
Well, there is always that caveat, isn't there? There's always something. Always something. I should go on to score predictions because we've done half an hour already.
Yeah, good.
Lovely stuff. Score predictions then. So obviously before we do this, we ask people in the Blue Room group chat what they think the score is going to be. Laura Gates has said 2-1 to Carlos 9 Toffees. Cy Magna 2-0 Toffs. Rob Vera with Hammers 2-1 Toffs. Ings will score. Gonna need to. That's a fair point. And Jack Carlisle 3-0 to the knee removers. I'm a big fan of the scoreline and the nickname.
The knee removers.
So what we going with? Mark, I'll come to you first with your crystal ball.
I agree with whoever said Danny Ings scores. I mean, that's obvious. We haven't seen as much as Carlo was going to bring that and that sort of Italian defensive stability at the back. I don't think we've seen enough from Everton now to be confident of keeping clean sheets in any game. So I think we probably do concede. And how many we score is I mean, get back to me at 1 o'clock on Sunday, because at the point where you see if James plays or not totally transforms what this is. But I think for all the reasons we've cited, it could be a game that we labour through. It could be a little bit of a tedious one. So I have gone for a bit of a pessimistic 1-1 draw. As much as we know the winning can't go on forever, it wouldn't surprise me if James was to be involved, that gets a little bit more promising for Everton. But I think 1-1 and an important game that we'll look back on through the season as being defining for us.
I'm pretty much going to agree with everything that Rob said. 2-1 if we've got James and Ings will score. I feel like at the moment it's sort of like you'd sort of fancy to score 2 goals in every game, because one, we've got Calvert-Lewin who's scoring every game, and set pieces we've been amazing on this season because we've got James who just puts it on the head of one of our massive centre halves. So I sort of feel like Don will score. We'll get one from a set piece again, maybe Yeri or something like that, and Ings will score as well. But I can't imagine it as most of there being an attractive game to watch. I think they'll make it really scrappy in midfield, and you have to rat around and try and get your quality players on the ball, but it'll be hard to get your ball players on the ball given the nature of the game. So yeah, I think 2-1 to Everton, but I think it's going to be a really tight, gnarly, nasty game. So yeah, come again and a set piece winner maybe late on, something like that. We haven't had a late winner this season, have we?
Felt like it last week.
We haven't needed them.
Yeah. maybe Yeri in the 85th minute would be nice, wouldn't it?
That'd be lovely.
Yeah.
Dancing in front of the Southampton fans, didn't the Watford fans last season, wasn't it?
Yeri Mina with a late winner, and then the whole squad to drive to Watford to do a dance outside Vicarage Road.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go somewhere between the two. So I think it'll be a definite scrappy game, but I reckon we'll draw it as well. I'm going to go 2-2. I think Danny definitely scored, because there's a stat he scored in 4 of his 5 appearances for Southampton against Everton. But it goes further than that because he scores for whoever he plays for against us, doesn't he?
Yeah, scored against us for Burnley and the Reds. So
yeah. So I can see it being a tough game. But as you said, Mark, it's a different sort of pressure now, isn't it? We want to keep the winning run going on. Well, that's gone, but we want to keep the unbeaten run going now. It's a big thing to not get beat and go into an away game like this when we have got like differences in the team. So Hammond could be out and Charleston is out. It just makes it like, well, don't really want to take a draw, but probably would not, just to keep that momentum ticking over.
Yeah,
it would be a big point for us.
It'd be nice if Pickford had a good game as well, wouldn't it? Like just say or something like.
Yeah,
I think what's done me head in about all this week is the fact that we said on Monday, me and you, Matt, we said sort of probably would leave him out of this one. The more this has gone on, the more I'm inclined to think, well, we've got to play him now.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, it's
too much of a story.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? Maybe that's the plan. You just make sure he plays now.
Well, if you're talking about pressure, that's one lad who's got it heaped on him. But from everything you hear vocally from him, you get the feeling that he's fine with that, and he's happy to carry the weight of previous mistakes. And I mean, his actions will hopefully speak louder than those words. But I think what the squad will hopefully realise, and I think the players that are involved now, and in particular the manager that we've got, they'll realise that pressure is a privilege. This is all where we want to be. We've spoken about it for years, and you can't get to a point where you are now on the border of being successful and then be scared of that success. This is the time where, I mean, we obviously watch Man City there. That's pressure. So these teams who win things, as much as they are able to deal with it, they go through pressure situations and pressure games every single season. It's just the fact that they are so adept at just knocking those challenges out the park. And that's somewhere where Everton haven't been to this point. But if we're going to be a team of any relevance, these are the games where you have to carry the weight of a tough week and go in against a team who are going to make it difficult for you, but still do the things that you're good at, because ultimately your quality should override any difficulty going into it. So it's a massive test. As much as I say, Southampton, when we looked at the fixture list in August, were not one of the sides who we thought that's going to be a massive challenge. But the way that the season's worked out, it definitely is.
Yeah, I think that sums it up nicely. That's a good point. Perfectly summed up there. Matt, you got a post-match tomorrow?
Yeah, I don't know who's on it yet, actually. I'm sorting that out. That's probably on my to-do list for today, yeah. Mosey's usually on these things, so maybe him.
I'll give you a message at about 3:30 tomorrow and let you know.
Yeah, so of course I'll be on here as well straight after the game, and all the usual places as well. So yeah, fingers crossed it's another happy one, mate. They've been great to do this season, the post-match ones, because we've won every game, and then the one we didn't win was really funny.
You can't ask for any more than that, can you? Right, cheers lads, that was brilliant. Cheers Mark, cheers Matt. Thanks to everyone who watched and sent in questions and interacted with us. Do remember to subscribe